running out of space. Their lethal use of force under the pretext of the Supremacy Clause, which is without legality or merit, is misleading, and I have been pushing back forcefully about it. To meet increased demand, the administration is planning to house up to 80,000 immigrants in warehouses completely unsuitable for habitation. And I was just outside with a group of AAPI community nonprofits who were saying that many people are being picked up, many of them are legal or have legal status, and are being shipped within.
This may look like a routine oversight hearing, but it's actually a warning about how quickly executive authority can stretch beyond its limits. What's really being tested here is whether immigration enforcement still answers to law, transparency, and democratic restraint, or whether it operates in the shadows, insulated from accountability. This raises broader questions about how far the federal government can go when fear and urgency replace oversight. In this video, we'll break down how detention policy becomes a stress test for constitutional balance, local authority, and the rule of law itself.
Thank you, Representative Ansari. And now I'd like to recognize Representative McClain Delaney from Maryland for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Ranking Member Jayapal and Representative Omar, for arranging this hearing. And I think it's really important because we do have the express authority to conduct oversight, and we must continue to do so at this incredible time. I have to say I'm just speechless after the last night and then today hearing all of this, and I just thank to each of you for sharing your perspectives and your experiences against this lawless, cruel, unconstitutional actions, including the murder of Renee Good, a mother. But I have to say that it is a concerted effort, really, to stew chaos and distrust and terror. And it is something that is not only undermining our public safety, but as many said, our very democracy itself. But what did give me unbelievable admiration is the absolute courage and resilience of Minnesota to stepping up to Operation Metro Surge. And just know that transparency and rule of law will triumphant over this dark time. I represent Maryland's 6th District, home to Gaithersburg and Germantown, who are some of Maryland's most diverse communities. And my constituents are immigrants. They come from around the world. And in Maryland, we've seen discriminatory enforcement, illegal deportations, including Kilmar, Obrego, Garcia, and record inhumane detentions. Our systems, also detentions, are not designed to really house such mass incarceration, and ICE is running out of space. Their lethal use of force under the pretext of the Supremacy Clause, which is without legality or merit, is misleading, and I have been pushing back forcefully about it. To meet increased demand, the administration is planning to house up to 80,000 immigrants in warehouses completely unsuitable for habitation. And I was just outside with a group of AAPI community nonprofits who were saying that many people are being picked up, many of them are legal or have legal status, and are being shipped within 24 hours to warehouses in Texas without transparency or with any access to good treatment or legal rights. There is a processing center that's being proposed in Hagerstown, Maryland, in my district, and I know there's one in Woodbury, Minnesota, less than a half an hour from here. I just want to know that there will be accountability for the president and for Secretary Noem. But in the interim, Mr. Mael, ICE visited a site this week in my district for their proposed warehouse detention center. Is there anything that communities can do to leverage their local legal authorities to push back against ICE expansion? And other than the litigation, what can we do as communities to enact new policies to slow down these detention centers and to give some transparency?
Thank you, Representative. Thank you for that question and for bringing it to the state perspective. Absolutely. Again, there's many things that community members can do to hold ICE and this government accountable. Here in Minnesota, we are actively litigating issues around 287G agreements, including where local law enforcement will sign a contract with DHS and do some of the work for them. And we are litigating when those things are done in a way that isn't prescribed by local law or state law. And there are community activists, advocates who are getting engaged at the county level with sheriffs and being engaged to make sure, whether it's a processing site, whether it's a detention center, whether it's your local sheriff cooperating with ICE, making sure your voice is heard and it is effective to hold people accountable and to bring these issues to light. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you for lifting that up, and I yield back. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Representative McClain Delaney. I'd now like to recognize Representative Dave Min from California.
The moment came quietly, but its weight was unmistakable. Representative McClain Delaney, visibly shaken, leaned into the authority of Congress itself and warned that what was unfolding was not routine enforcement, not ordinary governance, but something far more serious. Her words cut through the room when she said there would be accountability, not someday, not abstractly, but directly, for the President and the Secretary of Homeland Security. In that instant, the hearing shifted. This was no longer just testimony. It became a line drawn between power and consequence. What we witnessed was not merely a disagreement over policy. It was a confrontation over the meaning of law in a democratic society. Oversight exists for moments exactly like this, when executive action accelerates beyond transparency, when scale overtakes safeguards, and when communities feel the ground shifting beneath them without explanation. Delaney's testimony was rooted in that constitutional responsibility. She reminded the room that Congress does not observe from a distance. It acts, or at least it is supposed to. Her description of what is happening across districts like hers in Maryland revealed a system straining under its own momentum. Facilities never designed for mass detention. People transferred rapidly, with little clarity and even less public visibility. Decisions made far from the communities most affected. And throughout it all, an enforcement apparatus expanding faster than the legal frameworks meant to contain it. When government power grows this quickly, the danger is not only in what it does, but in how easily it begins to justify itself. This is where the deeper moral question emerges. A nation built on law cannot rely on urgency as an excuse to abandon process. The rule of law is not defined by how efficiently authority moves, but by how carefully it is restrained. Delaney's concern was not only about physical spaces or numbers on a chart. It was about precedent, about whether the supremacy of federal power can be invoked without limits, without scrutiny, without public consent. The hearing revealed a troubling pattern: expansion first, explanation later. Communities discovering plans after decisions are already underway. Local officials pressured into cooperation through complexity rather than consent. Legal gray zones treated as permission rather than warning signs. When Representative Delaney asked what communities could do to push back, beyond the courts, beyond litigation, she was asking a fundamental question of democracy itself. What recourse remains when systems move faster than accountability? The response pointed to local resistance, civic engagement, and legal challenges at the county and state level. But even that answer underscored the imbalance. Ordinary citizens and local leaders are left to react, to scramble, to organize after the machinery has already been set in motion. Power flows downward swiftly. Accountability, meanwhile, must fight its way back upstream. This moment matters because it exposes how fragile trust becomes when transparency fades. Government does not lose legitimacy all at once. It erodes gradually through decisions made without sunlight, through authority exercised without explanation, through systems that ask the public to accept outcomes without understanding the process. Delaney's warning was not theatrical, it was procedural. It was a reminder that no administration, no agency, and no official is above oversight, no matter how urgent their mission claims to be. There is also a broader political reality at play. When enforcement becomes the dominant lens through which complex human systems are managed, nuance disappears. Communities become statistics, facilities become solutions, and legal boundaries become obstacles rather than protections. History shows us that democracies do not collapse only through dramatic acts. They weaken when normal checks are treated as inconveniences. What unfolded in this hearing was a rare thing in modern politics, a clear articulation of responsibility aimed upward, not downward. Delaney did not blame local officials or deflect toward abstract causes. She named leadership, she named decision makers, and she placed the burden of justification where it belongs, on those who wield power, not those who live under it. That is why her words resonate beyond this room, beyond this committee, beyond this single issue. They speak to a larger struggle over whether constitutional governance still functions as intended, whether oversight still carries weight, whether warnings issued in public forums still lead to consequences rather than headlines. Accountability is not a slogan. It is a process. It requires documentation, persistence, and courage, especially when the machinery of government insists it is acting for the greater good. Delaney's statement was a signal that this process has begun, or at least that some are still willing to demand it. The question now is whether the system will respond. Will transparency follow expansion? Will justification follow authority? Or will this moment fade into the long archive of hearings where serious warnings were issued, noted, and quietly ignored? In a democracy, silence after such warnings is not neutral. It is a choice. This is why moments like this hearing matter. They remind us that the Constitution is not self-enforcing, that rights do not defend themselves, that accountability must be demanded repeatedly and in public. Power resists limits by nature. It is the role of citizens, lawmakers, and institutions to insist those limits still exist. The future of American governance is not decided only in elections. It is shaped in rooms like this, by statements like this, and by whether those statements lead to action. Representative Delaney placed accountability back on the table. What happens next will tell us far more than any policy memo ever could. If you believe transparency matters, if you believe oversight is not optional, and if you believe power should never operate without consequence, then stay informed. Support independent political reporting. And subscribe to Liberty Report USA, because accountability only survives when the public is watching.